Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the January 13th Urban County Policy Board meeting. Got lots of good stuff on the docket today. We apologize for the technical difficulties and the delay this morning. So we'll try to get through this quickly so that we can still get out on time. We will go ahead and start with introductions. Please take the time to introduce yourself quickly. Let us know which organization you're coming from, and also let us know if you are newly appointed, perhaps onto the board by your governing jurisdiction, so that we can keep track of that if you haven't already notified our staff here of any changes. So we'll go ahead and start in the room.
Chuck Green, alternate for City of Ridgefield.
Troy McCoy, City of Battleground. That's really loud.
Michael Torres, Program Manager, Clark County Community Services.
Rebecca Royce, Clark County Community Services.
Noreen Ibrahim, Clark County Community Services.
And I'm Glenn Young. I'll be serving as chair this year, and we will go ahead and go to those that are online. Rebecca, would you please call them?
Maria Varave, could you please introduce yourself?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, Marina Beret with Town of Yakov.
Elizabeth, could you introduce yourself?
Elizabeth McNanny with Resource Consultants, and we are working with the county and all of you on the new 5-year consolidated plan for HUD programs.
Thank you. Janice Phelan. I see your chat.
And just as an FYI, we do not use chat for this function as Open Public Meeting Act is for technical assistance only. Thank you very much.
Mark Hersig.
Mark Hersig, City of Battleground.
Thank you. Nicole Leon.
Good morning, everyone. Nicole Davison Leon with the Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber.
Thank you. Hope Browning.
I'm Hope Browning. I'm here with Elizabeth and Resource Consultants.
Matt Cole.
Good morning, everyone. Matt Cole here with the City of Ridgefield, new to the board, taking over for former Mayor Ron Onslow.
Tracy Coleman.
Tracy Coleman, City of La Center.
Melanie, I'm not going to attempt your last name because I don't want to butcher it.
Melanie Four, I'm with Upwards.
Joe Walsh.
Good morning, Joe Walsh, City of Washougal.
Tasha Slater.
I am Tasha Slater. I am a programs coordinator with the City of Vancouver.
Kat Fuentes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Catherine Fuentes. I'm also with Upwards.
Okay, and that's everyone that's here at our meeting.
There are some blank ones on there. Is there anybody else that hasn't been introduced that might be online? Okay, does not sound like there is. So let's go ahead and move forward to our second order of business, which is going to be the election of the vice chair for 2025. Last year, we had Mayor McCoy serve as vice chair. He did so faithfully. And Mayor McCoy, would you be willing to just quickly say how much work it is to be the vice chair?
It's mostly keeping Glenn in line. It's a full-time job.
Exactly. No, we have a really great staff to our board here that takes care of literally everything. The job of the vice chair is, for the most part, being there in the event that the chair might be absent. So that's about all you have to do is chair a meeting if the chair is absent. So with that being said, are there any nominations? And it's perfectly okay to self-nominate for vice chair.
So I'll just check, I'll jump in. I think Mayor McCoy is more than capable of being the vice chair. I would nominate him for that role again.
I'll second that nomination. Mayor McCoy, will you accept the nomination? Great, he has accepted it. All right, is there any discussion prior to us voting? Okay, hearing none, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor of Mayor McCoy representing us on the board as vice chair for 2025, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And are there any opposed? Great, thank you. Motion passes. Congratulations. Look forward to working with you again. All right, let's go ahead and move forward to agenda item number 3, which would be consideration of approval of the October 14th, 2024 meeting minutes. Do I have any motion?
This is Chuck. I move to approve the minutes of October 14th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Great, meeting minutes are approved. Moving on to item number 4, adopting the 2025 annual work plan with 2025 calendar. Rebecca?
Good morning, everyone. So at every January meeting, we adopt a work plan that kind of sets what the focus areas will be for the year. This year, we are looking to include some extra trainings, and we have some special focus on the consolidated plan. So provided in your packets in email, you got a copy of the actual work plan, but here I just want to give you some highlights. We will, for every meeting, do, or at most meetings, do our quarterly reports or other types of things, program updates that we find that have happened between meetings. But in the January meeting, we also do our vice chair election, which we just completed, an adoption of the work plan and the calendar. We're also going to do a quick consolidated plan overview with our consultant today to get you started on what's going to be happening over the next few months. We're going to do an overview of the 2025 CDBG and home applications. We're going to do some neighborly training like we do every year, so you're prepared for doing scoring. And we do have a quarterly report to review, which we may pass over in the needing for time, and I will send an email with any extra notes besides the actual quarterly reports so that we can move through the meeting as needed. In February, we'll focus on the application presentations as we always do each February, and you will get access to all of the applications to start the scoring process. In March, we're going to focus on doing the funding updates, making selections for this next year's applications, and that will be the focus for the entire March meeting. We are going to have an April meeting this year. We don't usually have a meeting in April unless it's needed. This year, we're going to have our consultant come in and do an overview of the draft consolidated plan. So all of the work that's going to happen over the next 3 months, we're going to put it into a draft report. They'll do a presentation for the board. We are also working in our department on our homeless action plan, our local homeless and housing plan. And so we are hoping to give you an update at that meeting also. We plan on having a June meeting this year, which we have been doing most months or most years. Recently, we'll do an update on the HUD action plan. One of the discussions that came out of last year's meetings was wanting a better understanding of the return on investment between the tenant-based rental assistance program and the multifamily housing. So we're planning on having that discussion in June, along with our quarterly report review. In September, we'll do our consolidated annual performance evaluation report. That's the annual report we submit to HUD. We will also start talking about the next round of applications and if there's any need for changes to the funding guides, the applications, anything there. We'll also have the Council for the Homeless come in and do a review of the 2025 point in time count, and we'll do our review of our quarterly reports. And then we'll plan on having a meeting in November. There we're gonna hopefully focus on Section 3 and give you guys an overview of what that really is, and then discuss about what you would like to see next year when we don't have so many other things that are gonna be already scheduled into the work plan. I last year was asked also to put together a calendar just so you guys would understand and see what the normal, like regular things that hit the agendas and when we need to do things. So I had put together a work plan related important dates. And so you can see this here. So this has just been updated. So you can see in what months, what types of things are happening, either for the board or for staff, making sure that we hit important reporting deadlines. You'll notice in June, we talk about that's when the program year starts. Or that it ends and it starts in July. So we wanted to put that information in there for you. So that is also included with your work plan, is just to keep you updated on when things are happening within the CDBG and home program. And with that, I will send it over to Councillor Young for adoption.
Great, that sounds wonderful. You know, kind of add to that discussion too, just in some informal conversations this morning with a couple of the jurisdictions, they are really struggling with that environmental review. And so there may be some infeasibility essentially coming out of that. So I'm sure that we're going to be having that conversation ongoing moving forward. Great. With that, do I have a motion to approve this year's annual work plan?
So moved.
Is there a second?
This is Chuck. I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any conversation prior? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving forward to item number 5, which is 2025 CDBG and home applications, for a brief overview of submitting agencies and a refresher on the application review and scoring process. So Rebecca.
Back to me. Thank you. So we put together a list, and this was submitted out to the Urban County Policy Board and all applicants to see what applications we did receive, but I wanted to do a quick overview. The City of Battle Ground submitted 2 applications under the Public Facility and Neighborhood Improvements Program, one for Northeast Grace Avenue for a walkway. It will add a path between East Main Street and Northeast 6th Street, and their request is for $150,000. They also submitted a request for doing some Rummy Park improvements, which would install some new park facilities at an underdeveloped existing park, and they're requesting $400,000 under that application. Clark County is requesting funding for a building that we own out in Battle Ground, and it's to do repairs to that building. It's a building that CMAR operates programs through, and they're requesting $400,000. The City of Ridgefield is requesting Maple Street improvements. This will be water, storm, and sidewalk improvements on Maple Street for $400,000. The Vancouver Housing Authority is asking for funding for Bertha's Place shelter remodel. This will be an exterior renovation of their building for $400,000. And then the city of Washougal is requesting funding for sidewalk and stormwater improvements. This will be the phase 1 of this overall project. It will include 88 sidewalks and stormwater management for $400,000. In asset and economic development, we received 5 applications. We received funding from Evergreen, or request for funding from Evergreen Habitat for Humanity for some land acquisition, and then the land would ultimately be used for home ownership. Fourth Plane Forward, Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber, Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon, and Upwards have all come in for business assistance targeting specific groups. The Fourth Plane Forward will be serving and highlighting services to BIPOC communities. They are requesting $285,000. Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber will focus on bilingual technical assistance to Hispanic-led agencies. Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon will be doing general business assistance, and they are requesting $118,000. And Upwards is requesting assistance in the amount of $240,000. For our affordable housing and homelessness programs, we received 2 applications for construction projects. One is a new application from Columbia Nonprofit Housing called River and Main, and it's in Washougal. It's a senior housing, new construction senior housing in Washougal. Their request is for $300,000. And then Vancouver Housing Authority is coming in for another allocation of funds for Weaver Creek Commons, the project that they're doing out, or getting ready to do out in Battleground, and they're asking for an additional $400,000. And we had 3 applications come in for tenant-based rental assistance, one from Janus Youth, which will focus on youth households, one from Share, which will do general services to single households and family households, and YWCA of Clark County, and they will have a program that focuses on domestic violence survivors. So that's all of the applications that have been received. Staff are reviewing all of the applications and will be reaching out to request technical changes to any applications as needed, either late this week or the early next week. And then our hope is to have access to, for the Urban County Policy Board, to those applications to start reviewing before, by the end of January, maybe the first week of February.
Great. So it looks like there is more need than funds are available. So
Yes.
the work that this board does is going to be instrumental in selecting what's most needed in our community. So appreciate your efforts there. Did have one question real quick though, is were there any applications that were screened out at this point at all for ineligibility?
Well, we have not done our meeting for the full applications, but there were ones that were screened out at the pre-application stage, or that had opted not to move through to the full application. In the pre-application list, Proud Ground applied, but they opted not to go forward with the full application. The Free Clinic in Southwest Washington decided not to move forward. I think there were 2 other ones, tenant-based rental assistance and another one that opted not to go onto the full application. We are expecting significant amount of home funding this time. We had funding that we rescinded from an applicant that was not moving forward, and we also had funding that was paid back, a significant loan that was repaid to the county. So we do anticipate having a significant amount of home funding available for this round, and we'll have final numbers in March when we come to with our recommendations for the scoring.
Great. Are we ready for item 6, or did you have more on this?
So we'll go into
Oh, the second half.
So
of
we'll
item
go
5.
into
Yes,
a
thank
quick
you.
overview of the neighborly scoring. So this will just be a refresher for you. I did learn recently, actually at the very end of last week, that when I send out the ability to get into the applications, I can do it in one email to you guys instead of one for each application. So you will not be inundated with emails through the Neighborly system. So I'm very excited about that. So you will get an email from the Neighborly system when you have access to go in and start scoring the applications. And I will make sure that we get you notified. The other thing that we wanted to let you know is that we will be sending out a new form. We The Neighborly system doesn't have a way of doing a conflict of interest for the scoring committee. So we will be sending out through DocuSign something for every scoring member to sign that just indicates that you do not have a scoring conflict of interest. And we'll talk a little bit about what information can be shared and what information cannot be shared through the application process. So you should be seeing that when you get access to the applications. If you need access to do scoring, we will provide the links to you in an email also to make sure that you have access to that outside the email that is sent from Neighborly. Once you go into the Neighborly system, you'll see on the left side there's a menu and it will ask you to start complete the scoring. So you just click on that and it will show you all the applications that you have available. Please remember that there are 3 separate programs that you're working with. So you will get 3 emails, one for each, one for public facilities, neighborhood improvements, one for asset and economic development, and one for affordable housing and homelessness with those access to those applications. The scoring report will show the points awarded and what points are available, so you can just easily watch that and to know how many points that you are able to give to each question that has scoring available to it in the applications. Please note that not all of the questions are scored for each application. This really comes into play with the public facility and neighborhood improvements applications and the affordable housing and homelessness applications because we have separated out the questions. There will be questions if it's a public facility, for example, the Clark County building would be a public facility. There will only be responses to the public facility questions for you to score against, but you do have the way the scoring system works, you would still see the neighborhood improvements scoring questions, but just make sure you don't score those ones because you don't have anything to score against. And the same thing in the affordable housing and homelessness, there's specific questions for construction projects versus tenant-based rental assistance. Asset and economic development, you will score all of the questions in for those applications. One thing that we wanted to talk a little bit more about this year that we haven't in the past is making sure that all of the scoring is done through an equity lens. This means evaluating the proposals not just on their merit, but also by considering how they specifically address the needs of historically marginalized communities and effectively work to dismantle systemic inequities and prioritizing projects that demonstrably aim to create fair outcomes for all groups, not just the minority. So that is what we want you to do when you're reviewing your applications. We provide with you some guidance on what your scores should look like based on the response to their question. What would be a low scoring, what would be a medium scoring, what would be a high scoring question. But we also want to make sure that we take in consideration the impact that this will have on historically marginalized communities. Key aspects to consider when you're doing your review is the impact on underserved populations. Evaluate how well the proposed project targets and directly benefits marginalized communities. What type of community engagement happened prior to submitting the application and what will happen during the programs administration in the community. Assess the level of community input involvement in designing the project, ensuring the needs of the target population are truly represented. Addressing systemic barriers. Analyze whether the proposal identifies and actively works to dismantle systemic inequities and inequalities that may hinder access to services or opportunities. Make sure that they're using a data-driven approach. Look for evidence that the applicant uses data to understand the disparities within their target community and tailor their project accordingly. The organizational capacity and community representation that they have, especially specifically around historically marginalized groups, and evaluate whether the organization has the experience, expertise, and internal structures necessary to effectively serve diverse communities and address potential equity concerns. We also wanted to talk a little bit more about bias. We have talked a little bit about it in the past, but to go in a little bit more depth this year. So bias is the prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way that is unfair. One of the first things we want to remind the board is that you should not be comparing applications to other applications. You should not be comparing applications to information you have out in the world. really take a look at what information is provided in the application, and that's where your scores should be based. But there are a lot of different types of bias that can come into our considerations when we are doing our scoring. One is affinity bias, where we have a more favorable opinion to those that are similar to us, and that could be based on race, gender, ethnicity, religion, political affiliation. The halo or horn effect, which is the tendency for a single positive or negative rating to cause raters to inflate or deflate all other ratings. So they may score low on one question and therefore you score low on all of the other questions, or they may score high, so you score high on all of the other questions. Each question should be scored on its own merit. The contrast bias is when you're comparing applications with one another rather than looking at each application individually. This can cause raters to overestimate or underestimate a program's capacity. The central tendency bias, which is one where you score always in the middle, never giving the maximum or minimum points allowed. The leniency or strictness bias is scoring consistently too high or too low. And the recency bias, and this leads to overestimates or underestimates of the organization being scored as having a good streak or maybe a recent bad streak. So how do we avoid scoring bias when we're doing our evaluations? First is thinking about our conflict of interest. Each scoring committee member is required to verify that they do not have a conflict through the following statement, and this will be part of that document that we send. No member of the advisory board shall vote on any matter if they or a family member have a personal or pecuniary interest. Their vote could benefit any organization in which they or a family member is an officer or employee, or that they have provided any advice, assistance, or guidance regarding any aspect of the proposal submitted in response to this RFA. This is a normal bias language that we have used in the past. When looking at bias and scoring, and we can avoid that by focusing on the content of the application, not your outside knowledge, and scoring each application and question separately from the others, not as a comparison. So you will be seeing the conflict of interest coming through you. We will be asking each city who will be responsible for doing the scoring. If you're splitting between staff members, that's fine. Just make sure we know so we have the access, we give them access to the applications and also have them sign the conflict of interest. And that is all we have for the neighborly update.
Great. Just wrote, that's a lot of information. Is there any quick questions or comments before we move on to item number 6? Okay, here.
I am. This is Chuck. I've been actually messaging with acting Mayor Pro Tem Matt Cole, who's kind of brand new to this. So we're going to be probably hooking up either Friday or next week to go over the neighborly scoring process. So I'll probably get back to you, Rebecca, as to how that will work. It'll probably be him serving what Mayor Onslow had served before with me as the alternate in the scoring.
Yeah, and as long as we know, we can make sure that there's access to, and then we're also happy to provide technical assistance as we can. Neighborly is really good about providing technical assistance on their end if it's something that's more technical in their system rather than like a how-to. And we are more than happy to meet with the Mayor Pro Tem and go over CDBG and home and provide as additional context as needed.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Let's go ahead and move forward to item number 6, which is program updates, timeliness, big one, and then grant agreements.
Right, it's been going. But the good news is we had we attended an in-person head training timeliness workshop down in Los Angeles in November. And with that, we resubmitted our timeliness report and our plan, and it was accepted by HUD. And we put in there that we knew we would not meet timeliness by this May, which is the next time that they do the timeliness test, but that we anticipate being caught up by May of 2026. So they understand that that's happening. However, this will be our 4th year, which means that we will be going into a formal consultation with HUD headquarters, and it could lead to a variety of actions by on their part. So we'll know more when we get to that point. And we are still working as hard as we can. And a lot of your staff know I've been bugging them about environmental assessments and moving them forward and stuff. So we are still trying to get there for this May, but we just don't. honestly think that it's going to happen. So we made sure that they were aware of the progress that we're making. But we did get it passed. We did get moved forward, which means we've got both of our grant agreements. So they've been signed and we have the funding available for the program year 2024 for CDBG and Home, which is great news. We will be giving quarterly reports to HUD on our timeliness plan. And I have a little bit here I can show you in the presentation of what that looks like. And then we also made an update to our quarterly report for the providers that submit them to us with additional questions around timeliness and what is delaying the projects and when they anticipate them moving forward, instead of me doing individual conversations with the agency. So it'll be a little bit more formal to have, so I have some place to go for that information. With that, this is the table we presented at our last meeting, which was quite a while ago. But this is just showing these are the projects that have been awarded funding in the past, what their program year is, and how late they are. So we have 3 very late projects, one for Battleground, one for Ridgefield, and one for Proud Ground. And we have several late projects, and some of them are moving forward. Almost all of them are moving forward. We're doing at least something towards the environmental assessment or going through the program more, but they are still not completed, and they are we need to move forward with those. The quarterly report for the for HUD breaks down all of the information, some timeliness goals of each project, of where we would be at completing them, along with some fiscal goals for them. And I don't have them in this PowerPoint, but I can create a copy and send it out to the board so you can just see what types of information we're reporting to HUD on a quarterly basis. That's what I have for the program updates. I recommend that we move past the quarterly reports and move on to the consolidated plan consultants, so we know we have enough time. If we have
Sure,
time
we can do that. Just one real quick question before we move past item 6. I am curious whether, just from your experience, right now you're communicating with HUD kind of on a staff-to-staff basis. Would there be any value in the board as a whole, and then bringing it back to our local jurisdictions, asking for legislative changes that would, for example, we were talking just a minute ago about the environmental review that's becoming almost impossible. Would there be any value to the board looking at that and maybe coming to a formal opinion and drafting a letter to our local federal officials that we could work with?
I think there's always value in us communicating with HUD when we find that there's things that are hindering progress in what we are doing. So I would support that. I will also note that there's a lot of uncertainty for what funding is going to look like under the new administration. And there will be a lot of communication from our national associations and from HUD to have our boards participate and understand, and to show why CDBG and home funds are so important to our community. So you will also most likely see additional requests for communication in that area also.
Okay, perhaps that's something that we could add to our agenda each month. It's kind of like a legislative agenda. And maybe think about that, bring it back to your local jurisdictions if that's necessary or needed, and maybe we can come back to that in our next meeting and discuss that.
One thing I'll note is, in terms of the advocacy for changing the environmental regulations, just from working with HUD, they look at it, the lens through which they look at it is, we didn't make those policies, that's legislated, we're only implementing law. So I think it's always useful to still message to HUD what the challenges are, but also have messaging go to our local legislative party, so that they're aware of what the legislative changes need to happen. And I think HUD would appreciate that too.
Great, thank you. With that, if there's no one opposed, we will skip item number 7 for today, and we'll move into item 8. And if we have time remaining, which we won't, I don't think, but if we have time remaining, we'll come back to item number 7. Any objections? Okay, So let's go ahead and move to item number 8. We heard very quickly from Elizabeth, but she can go ahead and further her introduction.
Wonderful. Thank you for having both Hope and I here. We are really excited to be working with all of you in the county, and we'll welcome feedback as we move through this process. I'm just going to do kind of a quick overview. Most of this will be focused on CDBG because it is the less restrictive of the programs that you manage internally between CDBG and home. So I have vast experience working in this field, as does Hope. I am a past board member of the National Community Development Association. We have both also run program, not just told people how to run program or helped them run program. We have experience on the ground, so we know the challenges that you face, you know, as you're looking at timeliness and environmental reviews and all of the other funding challenges that you face internally. And I will let you know that there is talk on the national level and has been, especially over the last couple of years, about changing the timeliness requirements for CDBG. Now that has to be done at a much higher pay grade than I receive, but there is a lot of work being done with the CDBG Coalition to make those changes. And if we can go forward. So I'll just do a quick overview of the CDBG program. The primary objectives are decent housing, suitable living environment, and to expand economic opportunities, principally for low and moderate income persons in the community. And each activity must benefit low and moderate income individuals, aid in the prevention or elimination of slum or blight, and that's a restrictive category that has to meet certain conditions, or address an urgent need that poses serious and immediate threat to the health or welfare of the community. And you would never use the urgent need category unless HUD tells you you can. It's not something that you want to assess yourself. It typically is related to natural disasters and other experiences or other things that communities experience occasionally. We can move forward. The core principles, again, are to benefit low and moderate income persons and communities. The other is community participation and leveraging and partners. So the county can't manage every program themselves, which is where, reaching out to the communities within the county as well as nonprofit partners to help address the needs of the community, and then strategic and targeted investments. The money received through HUD isn't enough to solve any one problem in the community. So it can't fix homelessness, it can't fix housing, but it really is about being strategic and targeting those investments to where leveraging and community partners that can move things forward quickly and well becomes really important. Next slide. So when we think about utilizing funding, there are a couple of things that come into this. The consolidated plan and the first annual action plan are what we will be working with the county on, and we are currently working, gathering information and getting some of the documents we'll need for the housing needs assessment and market analysis in place. So the components of the consolidated plan really are a housing needs assessment, and it's not what you think of as a broad housing needs assessment in a community. It's very prescriptive, as is the market analysis. But it is, utilizing data that is available to us to make sure that we have a clear understanding and that you have a clear understanding of what the current conditions are, as current as we can get, because by the time we get the data, it's already old. 5 years of strategic planning for the funding and an annual action plan. The first annual action plan is included with the submission of the 5-year consolidated plan. A separate document is an analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. Those requirements are under review and no current update is needed at this time, and that is outside of our scope of work. Next slide. So the way that we look at funding is to identify the highest needs. And I usually suggest, because the needs portion in the consolidated plan is actually a legacy section, and it doesn't inform anything else. It's never used again. I usually suggest that we use HUDs. What they identify as objectives: decent housing, suitable living in an environment, and expanding economic opportunities. And then with the goals, I usually don't suggest as needs that you have more than about 3 or 4, again, because they don't inform anything else. The goals are the big buckets about the things that you're looking at funding internally in the county. And then each goal might have 1 project or 3 projects down below it. And then the activities are a function of the other side of the reporting system that HUD uses, IDIS or IDIS, and aren't really a function of the consolidated plan or the annual action plan. And I'll have an example on the next slide of what this might look like. So if the need is decent, affordable housing, a goal might be to increase and preserve decent, affordable housing in Clark County. And a project might be Clark County Homeowner Rehabilitation Project for LMI residents. And I know that the county typically caps that at income levels at about 60% of AMI. So that would fall right in there. And then the activity, which you won't see in the plan, would be housing rehab roof replacement for LMI homeowner Marie Smith, and then maybe her address. So that would be the actual activity. So you can kind of see how multiple things could fall under the goals. You might be providing funding for acquisition for new multifamily or homeownership model housing. That could also be a project under that goal. So you're just looking at a goal and saying, what 1, 2, 3 things might fall under here. Next slide. And so each activity must meet at least 1. Again, benefit primarily low and moderate income persons, either as an area benefit if you're doing projects within some of your discrete jurisdictions, a parks project, an area benefit there would be looking at the service area for that park and making sure that it meets the standard of more than 51% LMI residents within that area. Or limited clientele. If you are providing a public service, are you serving low and moderate income folks? Housing and jobs, again, it must serve low and moderate income persons. The aid in prevention or elimination of slum or blight, which we had talked about before, and again, there are some very specific caveats before using that. An urgent need, which is rarely used with standard entitlement funds. Next slide. Income limits for this year, the 2024 HUD year. And within the MSA, CDBG has income limits at 80% and home has income limits at 60%. So when we look at this, we can really see that a lot of our community members will fall in these categories. The folks who work at our grocery stores and maybe beginning teachers. And, you know, there are a lot of our community members that would be eligible to receive services. These are, again, the current income limits. HUD updates these once a year. They don't usually change a lot. They do usually change a little. Next slide. So low and moderate income objective, it's the most common objective is low and moderate income. So at least 51% of program beneficiaries must be low or moderate income. This is, if you're looking at a public facility upgrade, it must serve at least 51% of the beneficiaries of any programs there as low and moderate income residents in the county. And CDBG defines low income as households equal to or less than 50% of area median income, and moderate as equal to or less than 80% of area median income. And then home typically caps income at that 60% number. Next slide. Activities affecting multifamily structures or public facilities, and I know you are all likely very familiar with these, including infrastructure, must guarantee that at least 51% must guarantee 51% or more low and moderate income benefit. So you're looking at a service area, you're not thinking about this is in a qualifying census tract. It's actually who is going to be served. So drawing those boundaries, if you're looking at public facilities or public infrastructure improvements. Those activities relating to single family developments must serve 100% low and moderate income residents. You can't have acquisition of property for building 4 single family homeowner model homes and have 3 of the 4 meet that standard. All 4 must meet that standard. And many jurisdictions require public service providers to serve 100% LMI clientele with CDBG funding. No project is ever eligible if there is not at least 51% low to moderate income benefit in this category. Next slide. And then we'll just talk a little bit about program usage caps. Planning and admin is capped at 20% under the CDBG program. Public services are capped at 15%. Public services may be a way, though, to actually expend 15% of that funding every year because it doesn't roll over. And in 2024, the CDBG funding is there on the screen, as well as the home funding. With home, the planning and administration cap is 10%. Next slide. Public service activities, which are not things that you've necessarily funded much in the past, but here are some of the services that could be included. Services for homeless persons, healthcare, childcare, fair housing activities, services for domestic violence victims or senior citizens. So there are, and this is not an exhaustive list, there is a long list of things that you can do as public services. But these are just some examples. So they really are services geared towards meeting the needs of the most vulnerable in our communities. Next slide. And activities that are generally eligible if they meet all of the other requirements would be acquisition and clearance. reconstruction or rehab of homes or other property, construction or improvements at public facilities, and assistance to low-income home buyers in purchasing a home. Next slide. And completely ineligible activities are buildings used for the general conduct of government, with one exception, and that would be accessibility upgrades. ADA upgrades in buildings used for the general conduct of government are the only activities that you can do with CDBG funds. General government expenses are not eligible, and political activities. And generally ineligible is the purchase of equipment. That equipment would, if you do purchase equipment, if you get permission to, or you make the decision to, that equipment is owned by CDBG and you have to track it all the way through to disposition. Operating and maintenance expenses, you can pay to help upgrade a park, but you can't pay to mow the lawn. Or do other maintenance. You can pay to put in sidewalks in an eligible area, but you can't pay to repave the street, which would be maintenance, unless you're doing another eligible activity that would require that you then repave the street. Construction of new permanent residential structures are typically disallowed, except under certain very restrictive guidelines and direct income payments. You can't write checks. And next. So what's next? Stakeholder meetings. I am very close to having a calendar that will be a good working draft of meetings that we will be attending. Staff will be on site later this month for an event in Clark County. We'll be holding community meetings. We'll have a survey available and we'll make sure that we get that out to you. We will be tabling at community events and we will be holding individual stakeholder interviews. That's really key in helping us figure out what's going on throughout the area. And then additional meetings and hearing times will be determined. Plan approval, we are looking at April 2025. We may not be able to submit exactly when the plan is due. It really depends on when Congress has a budget. So we're on a continuing resolution into March right now, and it could be May before we know what the budget is, and HUD won't let us submit the plan with the county's permission until actual numbers are in. And next. Hope and I are here to answer any questions that you might have. We're also here to be a resource. If you have information you want to share, you'll have our information. I know Rebecca will share these emails with you. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have a question that comes up tomorrow or later today. We'd be happy to answer those questions for you. Thank you. And again, this was a very brief overview, but and I know we're already over time. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and open it up to the board if there are any questions for Elizabeth. I have a couple. One is I'm hoping that individuals on the board, I know we're bombarded with emails, so if they don't wish to, they certainly can opt out, but I would be interested in being notified about when the community meetings are. I'd like to attend at least one of those if possible. And my next question would be, this is all federal funding, and federal funding is the furthest from local that you can possibly get. And so the things that I would really be interested in honing in on are those areas that have the most flexibility to adapt to the needs of Clark County rather than going by what HUD has determined, tailoring it to fit our county. Those are the kinds of things that I am really interested in finding out how we can build the plan to best do that, and how we come to a determination of what the needs are in Clark County. That's kind of one of the things that I've voiced on many occasions is, we don't really have an overarching plan or goal for the funding that has been, set by the needs of the county. And I think we could do some work on that. So I don't know if you have any comments to that.
Absolutely. That is really where some of these detailed stakeholder interviews come into play, because most of those are directly related to people doing work on the ground who see the greatest needs from the most vulnerable in the community. I work in community, I live in Oregon, I live in Mosier, but I work in communities from Virginia to Oregon, and Hope actually lives in Virginia. Every community we work with does something a little bit different with their CDBG funding and even their home funding. They have definitely differences in the way that they utilize CDBG. And so I think really digging in, our goal with this plan is to really dig in to identify the most critical needs and then work with you to identify how to best make sure that we're representing that in the plan for the next 5 years.
Great, thank you. I look forward to that conversation. Are there any other questions or comments? Great. Thank you. Thank you for coming today, and we look forward to working further with you.
We are really looking forward to it too. So thank you very much.
Okay, do we have time to circle back?
Counselor, I do. I believe we have time and we
Great.
can go back.
Okay.
Okay, so item number 7 is our review of our quarterly reports. So we'll go over those really quick. We'll also make sure that you get these in the email following the meeting so that you can see a little bit better of our project going on. The first slide we have here is focused in on the public facility and neighborhood improvement projects that have been funded. There has been a lot of work with the cities that have projects going for neighborhood improvement, working through the environmental assessment process. I've been working closely with Battleground for the Southeast Clark Avenue project and also the Northeast First Sidewalks projects. So we are trying to get those to move forward. Those both do require a full environmental assessment, and these are kind of the first ones that we're doing. So we're kind of learning as we go. And so we've been making strides, but we are moving forward with those projects. G Creek is close to getting their design determined. There was some discussions over the last couple of weeks of finalizing what all was going to be included in the project itself. And so we are working on getting that project moving forward. I also have been in conversation with Ridgefield staff about Hall and Elm to get that project started, but that's really in the stages of the environmental process for the Hall and Elm project. And then we haven't done much for the North Parkway Avenue in Battleground project yet, or the Sargent Street projects, as we're focusing in on a couple of other older projects. The Washougal Hamlet Park project improvement is under construction. Actually, they're kind of not under construction right now because of the weather. And so, but they've got the basketball court is all created. Really, it's going back and doing the striping and stuff like that. And they have some parking lot things to finish up. But that project is underway and near completion and will be done in the spring. The Council for the Homeless project is on here. The acquisition was completed back in April, but we have the project still open as we're waiting to get final usage numbers for the new facility that's under construction, doing some renovations. So that project is nearing completion also. Under asset and economic development, our business technical assistance programs all ended at the end of December. So this report is for July through September, but just letting you know that they did all finish at the end of December. They were on their way. You can see the outcomes to date through September for Greater Vancouver Chambers, 49 businesses. For the Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber, it's 24 businesses. And then the fourth plane forward, and then Greater Vancouver and Hispanic Chambers 2025 or 2024 programs started in January, and we're finalizing contracts right now to get those projects moving forward. With the homeowner assistance programs, we have Proud Ground and their 2022 funding in the reporting period, July through September. They still had not closed on any houses, but as of today, they've closed on 2, and they have 2 in process. So they'll be done with that the 2022 funding by the end of March. The homeowner rehabilitation program has a very stubborn project that we're having difficulties getting contractors out in our budget capacity to do some plumbing work. That is one of the last projects. All of the other ones are really at the finish line for the 2022 funding. So that will be done and off your reports coming soon. The Proud Ground 2023 allocation, we have worked a plan with them, and they will have those funds spent out this year, this calendar year, and then they will move into their 2024 funds, and they will have those all spent before they apply for any additional funds. That is part of the reasons they did not complete a full application. They realized they had enough funding and they were behind on, they want to get completely caught up, but we do have that plan. So they do plan on coming in for 2026 funds next year, and then they will be on time with the funding of their programs. Evergreen Habitat has a current acquisition project, and they are, we're finalizing the contract on that. There's insurance requirements that all of our programs struggle with. And so we are working with them to get that going. And then as soon as the homeowner rehab program is done with 2022, they move into 2023. They're already spending 2023 funds. So they are moving through that, and we are moving much faster through those funds. So they will be caught up soon this year also. And when we look at our affordable housing and homelessness programs, Second Step Housing, they have a market rate unit acquisition that they applied for in 2022 and then again in 2023, and they are still waiting to finalize funding. And then we have Weaver Creek, and the funding that they're applying for this time will just lower the amount that they have to get in loan. But the project, the environmental assessment is going, and they are ready to start construction here this spring, summertime. So that project is moving forward as expected. And then we have several tenant-based rental assistance programs. The Salvation Army ended at the end of September, so their program is complete, and they served a total of 9 out of the 15 households they proposed. YWCA is finishing at the end of December. They finished their program. They're moving into their next round of funding. They served a total of 6 households out of the 12 that they proposed. The Janus Youth Program, at the time of this report, they had served 11 out of the 20 proposed households. Lifeline served 9 households above the 5 that they had proposed. And TBRA for Share had served 19 out of the above the 15 households that they served. Janus, Lifeline, and Share all ended at December and are starting their next round of funding applications. And that is all we have for the quarterly reports.
Great. Any questions or comments? I have a quick question, kind of comment here. So, I'm looking through this and I see Battleground, Richfield, Washougal, Park County. I don't think that there was anything on Camas, but I know I've seen stuff on Camas in the past. What I don't see is Yackholt, Woodland. And, I look at the minutes from last month, nobody was here present from Woodland, nobody from Yackholt. I think somebody this morning was here from Yackholt. So I'm wondering, are there, Richfield, all those, the medium-sized cities, they have public works departments, they have the ability to move through this process. What I'm wondering is Is there barriers to participation with the small, really small cities and towns in our county?
I think staffing capacity is definitely one of them. Woodland was looking at doing an application the last couple of years that didn't pan out. One was they had to do an income survey and they could not get enough responses to make it a valid survey to be able to move forward with the project that they had. So we are in talks with the staff there. They've also had significant turnover. Their mayor and their leadership have turned over, including their public works director. So we don't have as close of a tie with them right now. We've been reaching out, trying to engage them to participate with the Urban County Policy Board. And so if you have connections with Woodland that you can get me to, so we can make those connections stronger, that would be fantastic. Councillor Veray is here. Yes, she missed last meeting, but she is here at most meetings. Yacolt used to get applications in and had several awards every year. Like they would have at least one award every year for many years. But the town was considered low income, so it was easy to find projects. It was anywhere in the town, where now it's only portions of the town, so it makes it a little bit harder for them to come in for the funding to find an eligible project.
That was Yacolt that you were just
That's
referring to?
Yacolt.
Okay.
And then La Center, they have also seen a lot of change in their public works staff. Tracy Coleman used to be with the City of Woodland, is now with the City of La Center. So I do anticipate that they are going to be looking for projects to come in and start applying next year or the year after for the City of La Center. That's another area that hasn't been funded in quite a while.
Okay, great. Thank you for that update. And if there are any barriers that are being experienced, please let us know, staff, myself, and we can put our heads together to see how we can break through some of those barriers. So appreciate everybody's participation. All right, so we have concluded our agenda aside from public comment. So is there anything from any members of the board or the public anybody that would like to speak up and address the board?
We know that one member of the public was anticipating on speaking from Upwards. You can go ahead.
Good afternoon, or good morning. Sorry, it's been a long morning, as you can tell. We actually have two speakers from Upwards. Is that all right?
Sure.
Wonderful. Okay, I'll go first. Good morning, honorable mayors and council members. My name is Catherine Fuentes, and I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships with Upwards, a major government collaborator and community program administrator. As the largest and fastest growing childcare network in the nation, Upwards is partnering with municipalities at all levels of government to address the childcare crisis at the local level. In the coming weeks, you will be receiving our CDBG application to administer the BOOST program in Clark County and the City of Vancouver. BOOST is a proven model for improving access to quality, affordable childcare for families. We actually just recently launched our program in one of the largest cities in the country, City of San Jose, for over $1 million in CDBG funding to support almost 150 local microenterprise childcare facilities. We received 100% provider enrollment in the first 45 days and spent down about 60% of funding in the first 5 months, exceeding majority of our program outcomes by the end of month 4. Spending down funds is something we are exceptionally good at, assisting many agencies who are struggling to spend down funding. We also have an entire team of folks who are extremely knowledgeable about federal regulation and invoicing as we work with cities and counties to administer CDBG funding all across the country. Just wanted to highlight that since I know that was part of the presentation today. As a special economic development microenterprise assistance program, we do not compete against local nonprofits who are submitting for public service funding. That said, unlike these and other microenterprise technical assistance programs, we solve a multitude of high priority needs with one single program. And I know that was something that we talked a little bit about, looking at the equity lens. As you know, the county's child care sector is a core component of a well-functioning, equitable local workforce. Unlike other small businesses in the community, child care facilities provide critical public infrastructure that contributes to higher workforce participation, gender equality in the workforce, reduced generational poverty, homeless prevention, improved housing affordability, and overall improved socioeconomic sustainability. The BOOST program does not address a singular need. It addresses multiple needs all in one. If the county wants to invest federal funds in programs that with the highest rate of return, supporting the largest number of residents countywide, then the boost is a no-brainer. Addressing challenges within the local childcare industry is critical to ensuring that all individuals in Clark County have the opportunity to participate in the workforce and reach their full economic potential. This includes promoting policies that support working families and prioritize childcare providers who are the foundation of a healthy, equitable workforce. So thank you very much for this tremendous opportunity to support the amazing community of people who have quietly dedicated their lives to improving the lives of those around them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And second speaker from Upwards, go ahead and feel free to make your comments.
Great. Thank you so much. Good morning, board members. My name is Melanie Four. I'm the Community Impact Manager at Upwards. I have 2 toddlers under the age of 4, so I know firsthand how tough it is for working parents to find affordable quality childcare. Currently, there are nearly 29,000 children under the age of 5 in Clark County, with just over 4,500 licensed childcare slots to serve them. This means thousands of parents are struggling to maintain employment, dual-income households, and stable housing due to the lack of accessible care. Many working parents, especially single parents, struggle to balance their job responsibilities with the demands of caring for their children. In the absence of affordable care options, many parents, and often women, are often forced to choose between working and staying at home. There are 91 licensed microenterprise in-home childcare providers in Clark County, but half of them are not operating at a sustainable level. These businesses, which are 98% female-run and 80% minority-owned, often make poverty wages, averaging $19.83 an hour in the county. With your support, our Boost team can bolster 33 of these providers, create 10 teaching assistant jobs, and benefit up to 400 households. How do we do this? So the Boost program equips the low to moderate income in-home childcare providers with personalized coaching and digital tools to optimize their operations and revenue. This allows them to efficiently manage and grow their small businesses and create the local jobs and expand access to affordable quality care for the working families in our community. This is really key. We don't only strive to expand access to affordable care, but also focus on improving quality and inclusivity of care. The participating daycares would receive free business and technical support, including a child care management software system that digitizes their operations. So this includes a proprietary family matching algorithm, marketing support from day one, electronic billing, curriculum management, which I love, safety monitoring, translation services, and more. Along with all that support, the daycare owners is paired with a dedicated bilingual care specialist. This is a reliable mentor committed to their success 24/7. Through personalized one-on-one coaching and training, they help the providers lay a strong foundation to sustain their businesses long-term, well after the program year. Our model is really built on the philosophy of teaching a woman to fish, equipping the providers with the skills and resources they
Excuse
need
me,
to thrive.
Melanie, we need to keep the focus on the topics that we have today. It sounds like you are providing a presentation for your application, and that will be done at our February meeting. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and we look forward to that February meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, our next meeting will be Monday, February 10th from 9:30 to 12:30, which we will receive at that time the application presentations. We look forward to that. Thank you all for attending today and for your involvement in this process. And with that, we will go ahead and adjourn.
Thank you, everyone.